Europe on the brink. Lukashenko goes nuclear. Belarus threatens Europe with nuclear fire. Lukashenko announced that Russian nuclear missiles will go on combat duty by December, and blocks road to Poland and Lithuania, turning the EU border into a war zone. Minsk is no longer a buffer, it's a Putin's new military base, a tricky nuclear time bomb at Europe's doorstep. But Europe is ready to respond. Finland deploys 15,000 troops to the Russian border, launching the biggest military drills of the year. The world stands on the edge. The new Cold War is turning hot. You are watching Ukraine Today. I'm Zoroslava Kolesnikova. Stay tuned, because what's coming next will change the balance of power forever. Lukashenko threatens to hit Europe, Belarus to put Russian nuclear missile system on combat duty by December. Belarusian dictator Alexander Lukashenko has once again shocked the world with his nuclear rhetoric, declaring that Russia's new Oreshnik missile system, designed for nuclear strikes, will be put on combat duty in Belarus before the end of the year. Speaking during a trip to the Vitebsk region, Lukashenko openly threatened Europe, saying Belarus and Russia could strike if they decide things are going badly.
Oreshnik is a terrible weapon. It will go on combat duty in December. Why? I want them to understand. We can hit if things go bad. We'll sit down with Putin, make a decision and hit. So don't provoke us.
The Belarusian ruler called the system fearsome and claimed it would become a new guarantee of security. Analysts, however, say this is nothing but nuclear blackmail aimed at scaring NATO countries and keeping Minsk in Moscow orbit. Lukashenko went further, repeating Kremlin propaganda to justify Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
The war in Ukraine began because Russian-speaking people in Donbas were oppressed, killed, poisoned. I saw it with my own eyes.
He also repeated Moscow's line about the Minsk agreements, claiming that Ukraine deceived both Russia and Belarus.
It turns out they came to Minsk just to deceive Russia and us. They fooled us. Well, they got what they deserved. Why are you provoking us? We lived normally. The Poles, the Lithuanians, everyone.
Plan to deploy Russia's medium-range ballistic missiles Oreshnik in Belarus first surfaced last year. In May, Lukashenko announced that he had reached an agreement with Vladimir Putin to put the nuclear-capable missiles on Belarusian soil, saying that launch cities had already been chosen. In September, he claimed that the missiles were on their way from Russia, but so far not have been delivered. Despite this, the Belarusian leader has been showing off a model launcher of the system in public. Analysts say this spectacle highlights both Lukashenko's dependence on the Kremlin and his desperate attempts to project strength. While Russia's war in Ukraine drains its resources, Belarus is trying to remain relevant by retailing its nuclear weapons. Europe, meanwhile, watches closely. Lukashenko's threats to hit NATO countries mark a dangerous escalation in rhetoric. Belarus closes its roads to Poland and Lithuania. Minsk escalates border tensions with the EU. The regime of Alexander Lukashenko is tightening the screw again. Starting his week, Belarus has banned the movement of trucks and trailers registered in Poland and Lithuania across its territory, a move seen as a direct escalation in the ongoing border confrontation with the European Union. According to the decree published on the National Legal Internet Portal of Belarus, the new restrictions prohibit the use of Belarusian roads for all cargo vehicles and tractors registered in Poland or Lithuania. The ban also applies to passenger cars from Poland engaged in international transport under individual consignment notes or CMR waybills. The document states the restrictions will remain in force until December 31, 2027, effectively blocking EU carriers from operating in Belarus for the next 2 years. The move follows a series of border shutdowns and airspace incidents between Belarus and its EU neighbors. Earlier this month, Lithuania twice closed its borders with Belarus and night after detecting air drones. On October 27, Vilnius went further, fully closing the border for Belarusian citizens until the latest December 1st, with an opinion to extend the measure. Analysts see the new transport ban as a deliberate provocation aimed at testing the EU's patience. With the border now locked, smuggling routes disrupted and political dialogue frozen, Belarus is further isolating itself both politically and economically. The once busy highways connecting Minsk with Warsaw and Vilnius now symbolize something else entirely: a closed road, a regime, and a country drifting deeper into confrontation with Europe. Belarus turns into Russia's military base. New camps, new troops, new threats. Belarus is no longer just a neighbor. It's becoming Russia's forward operating base. Satellite images show a growing network of new military facilities and upgraded training grounds across the country. Experts warn Minsk is preparing for massive long-term deployment of Russian forces. Is Belarus turning into Moscow launching pad for the next stage of aggression, or is Lukashenko losing the last shred of his country's independence?
Belarus is significantly strengthening its strategic position as a crucial military staging ground for Russia.
The issue of a Russian base on Belarusian territory is discussed very often. Listen, it's a made-up problem.
Journalists from the Schemes Project, together with the Belarusian service of Radio Liberty and the Estonian publications Delphi and EST Express, analyzed dozens of Planet Labs satellite images from 2022 to 2025 and created a map of Belarusian military sites.
As of right now, either brand new facilities are currently being constructed in Belarus, or existing older training grounds are undergoing significant modernization efforts. Based on, firstly, the comprehensive and extensive preparation of the Belarusian military infrastructure, which is being meticulously readied for the more widespread and intensive training of Russian servicemen, indicating a significant and ongoing commitment to these joint military exercises and strategic cooperation between the two nations.
The largest construction project is taking place near the village of Pavlovka, south of Minsk. Work began in June 2024. By September 2025, the construction site had already expanded to more than 2 square kilometers. That's about 280 football fields. Experts suggest that this is where Russia may deploy its formidable Oreshnik ballistic missile system, the very weapon Moscow loves to use to scare the whole world. This location is not accidental. Previously, this area was home to the Soviet military base, Military Camp No. 25 Pavlovka, where the Slutsk 306th Strategic Missile Regiment was stationed with R-12 ballistic missiles and mobile Pioneer and Topol systems. After Belarus joined the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons in 1993, the regiment was relocated to Russia and the base was destroyed.
In my opinion, these facilities are connected to strategic-level equipment that could be deployed in Belarus, whether it's Oreshnik or something else. It is possible that this will be nuclear weapons, since there may have been facilities for their storage at this site during the Cold War.
Satellite images show large-scale activity, deforestation, earth embankments, the construction of 13 ammunition depots measuring 30 by 20 meters, 3 hangars 100 meters long, and foundations for future buildings, all connected by a network of new roads. Overall, the facility consists of 4 separate sections of the base, a main one and 3 others of almost equal size, forming a true military district.
I can't say what else it could be. If the Oreshnik base appears here, it could be perfectly suited for this role.
The second base is being built on the outskirts of Gomel, less than 40 kilometers from the border with Ukraine. Work here began back at the end of 2023. A training and tactical field, a parade ground, barracks, and a dining hall for 680 people are being built here. In terms of size and infrastructure, the facility matches existing military bases in Belarus and could potentially accommodate a brigade of about 3,000 personnel.
Basically, we can now see how the military infrastructure of Belarus is truly experiencing a second wind. This could be connected, well, to Lukashenko's desire to attract additional funding amid the wave of militarization coming from Putin. In other words, roughly speaking, Lukashenko is using this as an opportunity to upgrade his own army's infrastructure. But of course, in general terms, this is yet another clear and undeniable demonstration of the very real and ever-present threat that can come both directly and aggressively from the Russian aggressor, and also, quite significantly, from Belarus, which serves as a potential and highly strategic staging ground for any future attack or military incursion.
And let us remind you that in 2022, Belarus was used as a staging ground for an attack on Ukrainian territory. From its territory, huge columns of military equipment advanced and about 700 missiles were launched. In addition, the modernization also affected the network of airfields. It was these airfields that Russia used as a base for its aviation at the start of the full-scale war. We're talking about Lunenets, Lida, Baranovichi, Ziabrovka, and Machulishchi. Now, many of them have had their runways repaired, received new hangars, air defense systems, and fortifications.
If Russia really does have plans for a new large-scale invasion of Ukraine or one of the EU countries from the territory of Belarus, it will be impossible to do so without a massive redeployment of aircraft to Belarusian airfields. It is precisely the movement of airplanes and helicopters to these bases, as well as the deployment of additional air defense systems, that will become an obvious signal of the Kremlin preparing for offensive actions.
In the central part of the country, near Osipovichi, a different kind of logistics is noticeable: the development of the 465th Missile Brigade. New hangars for the Iskander-M warehouses and the construction of a separate railway branch between this brigade and the neighboring 1405th Ammunition Base. The latter, according to the investigation, is considered one of the possible sites for the modernization of storage infrastructure, which experts associate with the preparation of high-security facilities, not ruling out the possibility of storing Russian strategic munitions there.
The military exercises themselves are a very serious and concerning signal of the direct and deliberate preparation by the Russian Federation, as well as its various satellite states and allies, for active and aggressive military actions either against Ukraine from our northern strategic front direction, or, which is currently and perhaps more realistically, of course, the critical Suwałki issue, meaning a potential and devastating strike against both Poland and Lithuania, two sovereign nations. That's why all of this is an extremely alarming signal, which is being actively assessed directly by NATO. We can see how, in parallel, the North Atlantic Alliance has also been conducting a series of military exercises for many months now, starting with Iron Defender 2025 in Poland, and then in October there will be nuclear exercises. And in addition, of course, there is the redeployment of NATO forces closer to the alliance's eastern flank as a demonstration of readiness for possible provocations from the Russian Federation.
Belarus has long set itself on the path of complete subordination to Russia. New military bases, modernized training grounds, strategic missiles, all of this is turning the country into a part of Putin's military machine. Every warehouse, every hangar, every road is a step toward turning the country into a territory from which Moscow can threaten not only Ukraine, but all of Europe. And judging by the pace of construction, this process is not just continuing, it is accelerating.
But the answer from Europe did not take long come. Finland deploys 15,000 troops to Russian border. Largest drill of the year begins. Finland is taking no chances. 15,000 troops, conscripts, reservists, professionals are heading to the border with Russia. Together with forces from Sweden and the UK, the Finns are preparing for their biggest military exercises of the year. It is a warning to the Kremlin or the beginning of a new northern front in Europe's defense.
Acting proactively. Finland is deploying 15,000 troops to the border with Russia. The Finns are preparing for the largest series of military exercises of the year. Conscripts, reservists, professional soldiers, as well as units from allied countries, Sweden and the United Kingdom, will take part in them. According to the country's ground forces, the purpose of the maneuvers is to test the army's readiness to defend the state and to strengthen cooperation with NATO allies.
These are NATO's countermeasures in response to aggressive actions by the occupying country. On the territory of the occupying country, in close proximity to the Finnish border, there is currently intensive engineering construction of new military bases by the occupying country's army. This concerns Petrozavodsk, Kandalaksha and other settlements within the Russian Federation, which indicate the redeployment of Russian army units in direct proximity to the Finnish border.
One of the largest episodes will be the Livali Sentry exercise, which will take place in southern Finland from November 27th to December 4th. It will involve around 7,000 participants.
The Russian Federation has constantly made it clear to Finland that it poses a threat to this country. Moreover, there has been a constant element of military political pressure on Finland aimed accordingly at maintaining its so-called neutral status. In other words, there is absolutely no basis to claim that friendly or good neighborly relations were established after the occupation of Finnish territories. The Russian military presence near Finland's borders has been constantly increasing.
In the spring of 2023, Finland became a member of the North Atlantic Alliance. This provoked a sharp reaction from Russia, further worsening bilateral relations. In addition, Finland imposed sanctions against Russia and refused to grant asylum to Russians fleeing mobilization. After that, Putin's lackeys began blaming the Finns for every possible wrongdoing at every opportunity. For example, in September, former alcoholic president Dmitry Medvedev decided that Finland was preparing to attack Russia.
After joining NATO under the guise of defensive measures, Helsinki is pursuing a confrontational course, preparing for war with Russia, apparently setting up a springboard for an attack on us.
Moreover, according to him, Russia supposedly has a legal right to reparations from the Finns for World War II. He claims that at the time they paid too little thanks to the goodwill of the Russians.
This is actually an element of diplomatic military pressure on Finland, and similar statements are being made not only about Finland but also accordingly about Sweden. This also concerns the island of Gotland and accordingly Poland.
Following the alcoholic Medvedev, the chairman of the State Duma Defense Committee, Andrei Kartapolov, also made aggressive statements. He stated, or rather threatened, that Russia is ready to defend itself at any moment since they have everything they need. Medvedev had previously spoken about this as well.
We cannot ignore the significant fact that Finland is currently a member of the North Atlantic Alliance, and this, in turn, predetermines changes in our military approaches to securing the border and responding to possible unfriendly acts.
The political and military leaders of Finland are doing everything they can to emphasize that an attack by Russia would be an act of suicidal madness.
The Russian Federation is demonstrating its readiness for a direct confrontation with the NATO bloc, and accordingly, the first countries that will be in the focus of the occupying country's army will be, respectively, Finland and the Baltic states. Therefore, the risks are quite high. This is also evidenced by the formation of new military units in the Leningrad military district and accordingly the deployment of military infrastructure directly near the borders with Finland.
Earlier, it became known that Finland had offered NATO to establish a new military base on its territory. Helsinki could become a base for large NATO reconnaissance drones.
That's all for today on Ukraine Today. If you believe the truth should be louder than propaganda, like, comment and subscribe. And if you want to help us keep exposing the Kremlin lies, become a sponsor and join our front line of information defense. Your support helps us fight disinformation, protect Ukrainians' voice and bring the truth to the world. Stay strong, stay informed and stay with Ukraine.